Hi everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Morgan and I'm addicted to Tessa Dare. Hi guys, this is Morgan. Welcome back to my channel. Basically, I have read the entirety of Tessa Dare's Spindle Cove universe, primarily during a 2-day binge where I read like 6 of them, 5 of them, something like that. So I just want to talk about them. This is going to be kind of like a quick fire review. I'm gonna like set a timer so I don't talk about each book for more than, let's say, 2 minutes. First off, let's give an overview of what the series is. This is the Spindle Cove. These are all Spindle Cove books, and basically that is a town on the coast of England where unusual young ladies can go to find themselves, make friends, and typically recover from the pressures of society. Basically, each of the books is about one of the girls in this town. I know that there's a specific historical romance subgenre called Regency. I don't know if this is what that is. These take place during the last few years of the Napoleonic Wars. So like 1812 to 1815 are kind of the years that these take place. So it's pre-Victorian and possibly the Georgian era, but I'm not like super sure. But let's start at the beginning. Okay, so I am looking on Goodreads right now just to make sure I got all the names and the orders right. Turns out I'm a liar, and the last book in the series is called Do You Want to Start a Scandal? I am on a hold for that audiobook from Libby, which is how I read most of these. I have to wait around 2 to 4 more weeks, I forget. So I'm not including it in this, but it will be in a future romance roundup probably. Yeah. The first book in the Spindle Cove series is called A Night to Remember. It stars Susanna and Bram, and basically Susanna is the daughter of the lord in charge of the area, and Bram is a visiting soldier who is trying to regain his job out in the field after injuring his knee. And he's charged with starting a militia in this town that's like meant to be a refuge for young ladies. And the tension was good. Susanna I really liked because she was very proper, which I thought was interesting for a heroine in a historical romance. Usually the heroines are always like, I'm not like other girls, and I'm spunky and fun and fresh. But Susanna was fun and fresh, but she was also like understanding of rules while still encouraging girls to be themselves, which was really, really cool. This wasn't my favorite of them all. It's probably my least favorite of all the books in the main series, not the novellas, just because I guess it's an introduction to the whole world. I wasn't quite as attached. I also think the dynamic between Susanna and Bram just like wasn't quite my favorite. It was antagonistic in a way that, honestly, I read it a couple months ago, so I don't particularly remember. But I remember liking their chemistry, but not quite loving it. They did have some sexy scenes though. I will say that. Big up on that. Did like it. I gave it 4 stars. The next story in the Spindle Cove series is the novella Once Upon a Winter's Eve. This one follows Violet, what's her name? Violet Winterbottom, and it takes place over the course of one night. Basically, they're all at the Christmas ball, and a mysterious stranger who's injured and, you know, barely on his feet staggers his way into the ballroom and collapses at her feet. Violet has a knack for languages, so she's the only person who can understand him, and it's kind of a mystery as to who she is. She was also betrayed in the past by her childhood crush. What are you doing? Betrayed in the past by her childhood crush. This wasn't my favorite. I think one thing that's really strong about the novels is that all the characters are friends, so you really see them before it's their time to shine, so you just get a feel for the connections between them. Because this is the first novella and it takes place after the first book, and Violet Winterbottom in particular never really shows up again in the series, It just felt a little bit disconnected. I'm also going to say, spoilers, basically the crux of the issue is when she was, I believe, I guess a year ago, she gave her virginity to her childhood crush, or her first love, who was the boy next door, and he left without a word. His name was Christian. And one thing that they would do together was play games where they would say obscure things in other languages, and he would have her figure them out. Anyway, the mysterious stranger who stumbles in is Christian a year later. It turns out he's been undercover. This is going way over 2 minutes, but I need to get this out. Basically, he's an undercover spy for England, like situated as a farmer in France. He's been passing along messages, and he couldn't tell her where he was going, so he was just like, oh, I'll have one night with her and then leave and it'll be fine. Clearly it wasn't, because he was still in love with her. And the whole reason he comes back to find her is because he hears that Violet is about to go back to the city, back to London, for a season to find a husband, and he's like desperate to ask her to wait for him. This book, or this novella, I think was weaker because the whole mysterious stranger thing in the beginning and there being a reveal. The reveal was really weak because it happens fairly early on in the story and there's not much mystery behind it. You figure out, like, Violet figures out pretty fast who it is. I think it would have been much more interesting of a story if it had started with Christian's perspective, finding out Violet was about to get, was planning to get married or trying to find a husband, and kind of feel the desperation more and follow him as he tries to get to Spindle Cove, instead of starting with her being like, oh, I'm a wallflower, this man has fallen at my feet, what do I do now, kind of thing. I just wanted to feel a little bit more of his anguish, because as it was, it felt like he got off a little easy for what a dick move he pulled, which was a lot longer than 2 minutes, but it had to be said. This is probably my least favorite of the novellas, which there are 3. The second full-length novel in the Spindle Cove series is called A Week to Be Wicked. It follows Minerva Highwood, who is the middle daughter in, there's 3 daughters, the Highwood sisters and their mother, while they're in Spindle Cove. And basically, Minerva is convinced that this guy, Lord Payne, Colin, is going to propose to her sister, and she just can't stand him. Like, she wants Diana to be able to find happiness or find love, and she definitely won't do that with this guy, Colin. So she's like, Colin, if you don't marry my sister, I will give you 500 guineas, which I don't know how much that is now or how much that is then, but you have to take me to Scotland so I can attend a geological conference, and everybody will think we'll eloped, so then you can't marry my sister. Which is a lot to explain, but basically she's obsessed with rocks, and she found a footprint of a dinosaur, which this is the second book I've read where the heroine's obsessed with rocks and fossils, and she finds proof of dinosaurs. The first one was Ravished by Amanda Quick, which is kind of weird. What a coinky dink. This book was good. This book is good. I gave it 4 stars. I gave Once Upon a Winter's Eve, whatever it was, 3 stars, but I gave this 4 stars. I loved this. It wasn't perfect. It was a road trip book. And they're so witty and bantery, and they flirt, and they get sexy pretty early on, honestly. I was surprised, but it's good. And Colin is he's a troubled rake, and he, destroys everything he touches, so he, and he can't spend the night alone because of childhood trauma. And Minerva's don't pull your bullshit with me, and it's just a great time. It was really cute. I really don't have that many things. One of my favorite things about this book is that because you see them kind of along the road and the evolution of their relationship, you really see them develop a friendship and kind of this relationship as they go, instead of kind of jumping straight into romantic so fast. You really see them bond over time, which is not the passage of time is not something that's always handled the best in romance novels. They all happen very fast. This one I think was so good. I really, really liked it. But the next one is actually my favorite favorite. The next book in the Spindle Cove series is called A Lady by Midnight. And it follows Kate Taylor and what's his name? Corporal Thorne. I don't remember his first name. Samuel, maybe? Yes, Samuel. Basically, Kate has been introduced in the first book, and I was so excited for this one because this series has been teasing the relationship between Kate and Finch, like, since the first book. I was like, oh, there's tension there. There is tension there. Okay, so basically Kate was an orphan. She has a port wine stain like on her forehead, so she's like, oh, I'm hideous and I have no family, very much that. And basically she and Thorne kiss like second chapter. It's really great, but when they arrive back to the town, because they were like in a neighboring town, they come back to Spindle Cove, there's a family there claiming that Kate is like their long lost cousin. And Finch is like, something's not right here. And in order to figure out a way to insinuate himself into the situation so he can protect Kate, he claims that he is her fiance. This book is my favorite dynamic. Neither of them are noble people. One thing I really love about historical romance is because in contemporary romance, like, yeah, there's things that keep people apart, but typically societal expectations, societal rules are not one of them. I like historical romances because oftentimes social rules and expectations come into play a lot more because they're so much stricter, especially with nobility. Basically, I love a book where there's a low-born hero, where the guy is not like a noble, and I love all the ones where the guy is, but I love that. And specifically, even if that wasn't true, even if he was a noble, even if he was blah, 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 whatever, my favorite dynamic in romance novels is when the guy is just like huge and stoic and doesn't really speak that much and is just kind of a tough dude, but in his heart he's just pining over like a beautiful, kind, gentle, like lovely woman who he thinks is way too good for him. Like, obviously the, oh my god, they're too good for me is like a thing that's common in a lot of books, but I want the longing, I want the yearning. That is what I'm here for, you know? And I just need them to feel like they can't, but they can. And that is what this book delivered on. 5 out of 5 stars. Literally so good. I loved this book so much. This has been way longer than 2 minutes. I don't give a fuck. I loved this book. It was like, it's another thing though, is they didn't get steamy until I think right around the halfway point, which is like, okay. I would have liked a little bit more before that, but honestly, this book was so good. I loved it so much. I thought the epilogue was stupid. Like, it didn't need an epilogue, but I loved it so much. Up next is the second novella in the Spindle Cove series, and this is called Beauty and the Blacksmith. This is actually, I believe, the first thing I ever read from this series, and this follows Diana Highwood, who is Minerva's older sister, as she kind of decides she wants to pursue the local blacksmith. What is his name? Aaron Dawes. And this book, or this novella, was very good, very sexy. Same thing that I was saying before with like stoic low-born man pining after hot, like a classy lady who he thinks is like perfect and beautiful, too good for him. What I really liked about this one is that Diana is like horny for Mr. Dawes. Like, it starts off, the very first like paragraphs are her watching him like fix her necklace and her going like, his arms are so thick, like his wrists are so thick, like she's horny for him. It's a great time. I'm very into it. I thought this one, because it's a novella, it doesn't really have like a huge plot. That's another thing. Once Upon a Winter's Eve had like a lot of plot shoved into one book, and it was very odd, felt very rushed. Yeah. And it also only had one sex scene. This one, I think, manages to fit in 2 or 3 maybe sex scenes, which is, I would say, impressive. and I just liked it. Diana's cute. She's not like the most interesting of heroines, I will say. She's a little bit like, oh, I'm a good girl who just, you know, does my thing. Like her big rebellion is that she has been lying about having asthma attacks in order to make sure her mom like stays off her back. And I gave this one 4 stars, so it's actually my favorite of the novellas. The 4th book in the series and the last full novel that I've read, there's one more that I completely forgot about before I decided to make this video, is Any Duchess Will Do. This book is slightly different than the first 3, and at first I thought like it would be to the book's disadvantage, but I actually ended up really loving this one. This is the second and only other book in the series that I gave 5 stars, and this book is different in that the characters are basically newcomers. They've both been mentioned before in the series, like the guy, his name's Griffin, they call him Griff, he's the Duke of Halford. He like showed up for 1 chapter in A Week to Be Wicked, and Pauline is like kind of a staple in the town of Spindle Cove, so she's been mentioned offhandedly a few times. And basically, they're just not as central, so I was like, oh, I don't really know how this is gonna go. But the plot of Any Duchess Will Do is Griffin's mother has decided to be a meddling old lady, and she takes him to Spindle Cove, walks him into the room full of the ladies as they're doing their little sewing things, and she's like, you pick any girl in this room, and I will make her into Duchess material. Please get married for the love of God. And to spite her, he decides to pick the servant girl, Pauline. So Pauline is not one of the nice young society ladies who comes to Spindle Cove to recuperate. She is the daughter of a farmer, and she wants to open up a lending library in the town. And she's like, okay, you picked me to spite your mom. I will be the best failure you've ever seen. But they end up falling in love. It was really good. There was a lot of like class tension in this one, which I really appreciated. My favorite novel, like my favorite book of all time, is Jane Eyre, and one of the reasons I like it is the whole love and class tension, which I think it examines really well. And this one also I think examines really well, especially for like a straight up romance novel. Griff has a he's a tragedy that has happened recently in his life that he's like not talking to. And I thought that his backstory is one of the more interesting that any of the men in this series have had so far. He's definitely a complex character, which I really like. He is also like, he ends up being like desperately in love with Pauline, which was like so cute. It was so cute. A lot of the times the guys kind of remain, can you not push my table, girl? A lot of the times in romance novels, guys remain alpha and macho after falling in love and all the love scenes happen. But he's like full on like, no bitch, I'm desperately in love with you. I'm gonna be so fucking sappy. It was so cute. I really liked the conflict in this one. I didn't think it was too bad. And I was just really into it. What did I say on Goodreads? Yeah, just generally that it was delightful and I really liked it. So, yeah. The last thing I'm going to talk about, which is the last thing I've read in the series, is the 3rd novella. It's called Lord Dashwood Missed Out. This is my middle of the road novella. It's my second favorite of the 3, and basically it is about Eleanor Browning, who is an author of a, I guess, feminist pamphlet. She basically wrote an essay saying girls don't need to feel validated by men's attention or romantic interest, that women are valid and worthy in and of themselves, and not only if somebody proposes to them, which is like, obviously, but it's 1813 or whatever. And the reason she wrote it is because back in the past of her life, she had been in love with her neighbor, Lord Dashwood, and he left very suddenly and, you know, didn't say goodbye, and she believed him to be on the verge of proposing to her, and she was devastated and needed to work through it, so she wrote this pamphlet. And basically, this story is her trying to get to Spindle Cove to talk to the young ladies there, and Lord Dashwood, the boy next door. What was his name? George Travers. They end up in the same carriage, and it's a very snowy, stormy night, and they end up having to shelter together in like a hut on the side of the road. This was a funny one because I did like Eleonora, or Nora as she's called in the story, Nora and George, but they are both just rando characters that are like one-offs in the series. There were actually mixed in, there were kind of interludes with the previous couples. So Pauline and Griff were there, Minerva and Colin were there, Susanna and what's-his-face, Bram were there. You know, all the friends, they were all hanging out. It was a good time. And they were kind of having their own subplot, which I really liked. It was really cool to see how the relationships develop afterwards, because some of them have kids or, you know, are moving into different houses and stuff like that. So this book was, or this novella was just highs and lows. That's why I kind of feel so about it. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't bad. And the sex scenes are always good in all of these books. I just want to say, every single one of these books, A+++ sex scenes. Now that I've talked about each of these books for a little bit, I just want to talk about why I like Tessa Dare so much and how she might be my new favorite romance author. It's been the same romance author, Amanda Quick, for like 10 years. So it might be about time for a switch up. But my next door neighbor plays really loud music in his driveway, so if you can hear it, I am sorry, but I'm going to keep going because it's just going to get louder. Something that I appreciate about romance novels, that I've always appreciated about romance novels, is that they're formulaic. And this is something that bothers a lot of people. It's one of the reasons that the genre is kind of like looked down on, I feel, in my opinion, is that there are certain formulas, certain like very, very consistent tropes that work and are very popular, and so they're often mass produced. One of these is like the alpha male, one of these is, you know, age different, you know, things like that. Not age difference, that's not really a popular one, but specifically alpha male, along with like a spunky female lead with some sort of like out there interest that makes her different than other girls, which I don't even give a fuck about the whole not like other girls trope as it's in historical fiction. Like, for some reason, I just don't care. Basically, they're very, very formulaic, and I love finding authors where I love the formula. And the thing with Amanda Quick is that I really, really like her formula. Oftentimes there's a mystery or a murder that the heroine has decided she wants to solve, or she's somehow, you know, feels that she might be associated with, so she seeks out the help of the usually alpha male who's, you know, emotionally constipated, and then they kind of become close during the search, and, you know, he is instantly in love with how intriguing she is, even though he won't admit it to herself, and it won't admit it to himself, things like that. Like, there's usually one person dies in the beginning, the woman has like a close call where she's like in danger, the guy swoops in at the end and saves her and, you know, confesses his love, all of that stuff. Yes. And I love that. That is my favorite formula I have found. But something about Tessa Dare that I like is that she never fails in the dynamic between the characters. I have not read a single one of her books or novels where I wasn't convinced that they were in love, you know? And maybe if I was like, I don't know about love, I could tell that they at least wanted to bang, like real bad. And something that happens is like, I'm very empathetic, but if I'm very, very like, oh my god, this is so fucking cute, my chest like will ache. Like, I will like feel it in my body when I can feel the tension and the longing and the love between characters. And I have experienced that with every single one of these books. Every single one of these books, I feel like there are really high emotional stakes while still maintaining this very lighthearted, fun, easy to read, easy to love writing style. And I just thought it was delightful. Like, it was lovely. Every single book I devoured. I read the second, third, and fourth novels like within 2 days. Like Monday and Tuesday of this week, I fucking just devoured them. And I keep saying that, but it's because I couldn't be stopped. Like, I was on a roll. I suddenly felt so motivated to be reading. It's because I was reading these books that I was just loving so much. And now I'm back to trying to finish the other books that I was stuck in the first place, and I'm stuck again, but well, whatever. But I just think that romance as a genre is often kind of shit on for those formulas that can make them so comforting. Like, romance is my comfort reading, you know what I mean? Which is so weird to say. I mean, like, Harry Potter's my comfort reading too, but I also, when I'm upset or if I don't feel well or if I'm just in a reading slump, like, the thing that I'm gonna go to, the thing that I trust, the thing that I know is gonna get me out of that is romance novels, and these are by far some of the best romance novels I've read this entire year. Some of the best romance novels I have read in years, and that's because they are consistent, and the level of quality of writing, of characterization, of world building, of relationship tension is just consistently high, and I'm so excited to read the rest of her books. The Girl Meets Duke series, which I believe is The Duchess Deal, The Governess Game, and The Wallflower Wager. So far, there is a long waiting list in my library, so I'm like on the road to getting there, but I'm just so excited to have discovered this new author. I just love romance so much. I love historical romance so much. I want more people to love it. I know it's kind of trash, but you know what? It's my trash. So that is where I'm gonna end it today. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. I hope this video wasn't too long, and have a great day. I will see you next time. Bye.